I'm going to introduce our guest in just a minute, but before we begin that, I want to turn it over to Darren Dietz, who is our Director of Special Events. And one of the things that we always do with this series is also try to feature a cocktail that is from, because it's an aperitivo session, so we encourage people to have a drink in their hands while they listen to us. But we want to highlight restaurants in our community because so many of them are having a difficult time, just to make sure you know who they are and patronize them if you can. So Darren, take it away.
So this restaurant tonight is Candor by Giuseppe. Some of you who have joined us before may recognize that. We did do Candor by Giuseppe for a couple months ago. The reason I'm doing it is for two reasons. One, because he is featuring a special charcuterie option for our guests who go to La Boheme performance. So you can pick that up on the way. We are sending out emails tomorrow with a list of restaurants that we've kind of looked around at different locations in the area that might be convenient for you, because we do recommend kind of making a picnic out of it if you like. So the other reason is because they now have a liquor license. So Yahoo. So what we have today is going to be with gin. It's a Plymouth gin, grapefruit 2 ounces, Aperol 2 ounces, Prosecco 2 to 3 ounces, I'd go 3, orange oil, and orange twist. And I'm smiling because I just remembered I forgot the name. The name is La Dolce Vita, and it is here. And without further ado, I will turn it over to you.
All right, Darren, thank you very much. Cheers. Cheers, everyone. Happy beginning of the weekend for most of you. Happy beginning of the work weekend for all of us involved in this production. I want to say a special welcome to those of you that might be joining us as members of San Diego Symphony Orchestra as opposed to San Diego Opera, because I know we've sent an invitation out. So if you're joining us from our wonderful partner organization, we welcome you. And this is something we do every other week with our donors just to help them stay connected to us in this trying time. So we have 2 wonderful guests today, both involved and the heads of San Diego Symphony Orchestra, Martha Gilmer, who is the CEO of San Diego Symphony Orchestra, and also, of course, Rafael Payare, who is their new music director. And Rafael we're so excited to have him conducting this production of La Boheme. So he's been involved in rehearsals with us for the past 2 weeks, and we'll talk about that coming up. But what I usually do in this, I will follow the order that I usually do, which is to just introduce our guests and let them talk a little bit about their backgrounds, and we get to know a little bit about them. That's always a nice place to start. So I'll start off with Rafael. Welcome. Wonderful to have you with us. How long have you been in San Diego now?
Wait, what is the date today? I have no idea.
Today is the 22nd of October, right? I think that's right. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think I arrived by October 5th, I think. I was coming from Stockholm. Yes, so 2 weeks or a little bit more.
Excellent. Yeah. So you are, you traveled a lot. How much time do you actually spend here in San Diego as opposed to doing other conducting gigs around the country?
Well, as we know, when the conditions of where the whole world is, there's 2 answers to that. So let's make actually the answer that what did happen. I was in San Diego since March 13th, and then I went back to Europe on August 31st. So it was a big stretch to get to know the house here in San Diego. I would love to. I knew a little bit more of the community because, of course, everybody was in lockdown, so I wasn't being able to go out. But then when the sun, well, here is always the sun is shining, but when we could actually be a little bit out, I could get to know some different places in here. And then I went to Europe to have some concerts and came back to be doing now this very expressive project with you guys and the San Diego Symphony as well. So.
I'm so glad that this worked out. I want you to talk a little bit about the role that music has played in your life. So tell us a little bit about your childhood and your involvement with music in your childhood, and also your education in the El Sistema system.
Sure. I came to music actually quite late. I was almost 14 when I actually discovered music. In Venezuela, not to this day, we are not fortunate to have like an NPR that we could have access anytime that we want to classical music. So I didn't have much of a contact, but my brother, he was part of this El Sistema program, which is a musical system that exists in Venezuela that there is a little unorthodox, because the whole thing is that you will get theory, and then you choose the instrument and they put all of that, and years later maybe you could play in an orchestra. With El Sistema, one of the idea, let's put it in a nutshell, is that actually you just get yourself into one of the nucleos, one of the little centers. They will give you the instrument, they will give you the teachers, but at the same time you start playing in an orchestra right away. So you get all the compound. It's like immersion, full immersion since the very beginning. Of course, when you're young, you see that your peers are playing something, I can do that, you get that very natural competition that then you start improving very fast. So I was almost 14. My brother was already playing an orchestra, and he was listening to something in his, some recording in his room, and I was jumping around and heard something, and I asked him, what was that? He asked me, do you like this? And it's like, yes. Month later, I found out that was the 1812 overture from Tchaikovsky, and what I have heard was the Marseillaise. So it was the horn sound what it caught my attention. Next day, he took me to the orchestra. There was a French conductor that was also the teacher of French horn, trumpet, tuba, and trombone. Yeah, that's also one of the things that happened in Venezuela. You wear many hats. He was the conductor of the orchestra, and he just gave me this bronze thing and told me blow. I did, it sound, and that's how I started playing the French horn. Yeah. Yeah, it goes after that. It was like a train ride. 3 weeks later after that, I by chance he asked me to come to an audition. I have no idea what audition was supposed to mean. Asked me, play what you're going to play. So like, well, what you have taught me. One scale, I played the scale. Next Monday, I was already playing in the orchestra. So it's like, yeah, it goes up very, very fast.
Wow. So did you know after hearing 1812 that French horn that was what drove you to wanting to play the horn, or did he just assign the horn to you?
Well, the thing, I think my brother told him about it. And I found out that was 1812 months later. Per chance, the orchestra was in need for horns, so everything kind of aligns. And horns is a wonderful, very ungrateful instrument. So sometimes, yeah, it doesn't sound as fast. So I was lucky enough that somehow the instrument chose me, and when I put it in my mouth, I blow and it sounds. So it was, yeah, one of those things.
That's terrific. And when did you begin conducting?
Yeah, well, I was playing in the National Children's Orchestra in Venezuela, and we had a tour with an Italian maestro. His name was Giuseppe. Yeah, and I got very impressed with how he changed the sound of the orchestra. We were 150 kids playing in the National Children's Orchestra, and without speaking Spanish, just with his aura, he changed the sound within less than a minute. And I said, wow, I want to have that. So that's how I got the conducting bug. And then with the founder of El Sistema, Maestro Jose Antonio Abreu, one day we were talking, and he told me that he could show me the way if I allow it. And he put me with teachers and everything. So I started having all the compound, but in Venezuela, we do things very in an unorthodox way. So I have teachers for all the theory only for me. But because I was the principal horn of the orchestra and we were playing, I have my conducting classes with him. Anytime he just called me, come to my office, and it could be from 9 to 12 in the evening or to another day. So it was like that. And then I started doing more rehearsals for Gustavo in the orchestra and things like that. So everything kind of happened organically. It just started to go until, yeah, now here I am.
Wonderful. So Martha, welcome.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have you here. So you arrived in San Diego a little bit ahead, like a year ahead of me, maybe. So are you in your 6th year now, or?
Yes, I have been here 6 years.
6 years, and I've been here 5. So yeah. Martha was one of the first people that I met in San Diego, and one of my first trips here. And I remember, I think our first meeting actually was at the University Club, the one that's in your tower, right? So,
Yeah.
which has that amazing view. And I kept looking across your shoulder at the views, kept saying, I've got to, sorry if I'm not acting like I'm not paying attention to you because I was so astounded with the gorgeous view of San Diego. But Martha is one of my closest colleagues in the city. And one of the things that I'm sure many of your patrons and your friends with the company know, but many of our patrons probably don't know, is that music was a part of your life as a child as well. For most of us that lead arts organizations, music has been a part of our lives, or the arts have been a part of our lives for all of our lives. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and the role that music played in your childhood?
Well, I was one of the fortunate people in the 50s and 60s that had a piano in the living room. That isn't the case anymore. That's just automatic, but that was just, it was a piece of furniture. My sister had played it. It sat quiet for a number of years. And so I really wanted to play. And I started lessons when I was probably 4.5. And for me, it was a great outlet. And I was eager to keep playing. So I studied piano all the way through university, through my, I guess, second year in university. And I played in also the band. I played bassoon, and music was just part of my life. And then it dawned on me what I really like to do is work with people, and I didn't want to be in a practice room the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a self-design major in arts administration at Northwestern, and then went into the business side. But you know, when I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, and we had all kinds of music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, church music, and I used to sit down at a Hammond organ in Johnny Reynolds' Supper Club and play for fun. And I would play Masonic installations. I once played for a circus. I taught piano lessons, and we had Sweet Adelines in, you know, and so music was present. But there was actually no opera. My mother would turn Ed Sullivan off when the opera singer came on. And so I didn't hear a symphony orchestra until I was probably 16 or 17. And then discovered the wonderful world of opera after that. And fortunately, I was fortunate enough, you know, you mentioned Sinopoli, who was a great opera conductor as well, symphonic, and really then grew to love opera as I got older. But it did keep me my taste in music to be really wide based on the beginnings.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. Yeah, I know both the opera and the symphony are trying to do some, I think, very good work to replace some of just as you mentioned, music was so much a part of all of our lives in the education programs that we all grew up in schools, but also just a part of our homes, right? And that doesn't exist so much anymore. So we are trying as institutions to help remediate that a little bit, I know. You also have a talented family. So your husband is a musician.
Right, and a really gifted music educator. He taught in high school music for 33 years.
Wow. And your son, who we were lucky enough, Jonathan, to have design one of our productions in our Detour series 2 years ago, As One. If you saw As One, Martha's son, Jonathan, was the designer of that production, is a very talented scenic designer, lighting designer, and he's working at the Globe now. Is he still, I'm sorry.
He's at the Playhouse.
Yeah.
He's at the Playhouse, yep.
So very talented family, which is, I just think it's fun for people to make sure that they understand that. So you were at Chicago Symphony for quite a while.
I'm going to actually just tell you only one other story about my sons. I have 3 of them, because it goes back to your idea of music in the home.
Yeah.
When James Levine first did The Ring at the Met, and we remember that it was televised, and it must have been in 91?
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
Sounds about right. I was at the playground with my son, David, the oldest, and I said, we're going to go home and we're going to watch the opera for a little bit, and then you're going to go to bed. And it probably started at 7:30, whatever. Bedtime was 8 or 8:30. He was mesmerized, and I told him the story as we went along, and I said, that's Freya the Apple Lady, and, you know, etc. And the Rhine Maidens, Albrecht wants to play, but the Rhine Maidens don't, and whatever the story was. He still to this day has the, we had it on, we recorded it, and he would watch it. I want to see my opera, and he knew every leitmotif. He knew every single one. If he'd say sing the Tarnhelm or whatever.
Wow.
He was 4 years old, and my first boss ended up being the head of Bavarian State Opera, and he came for dinner, and John and David entertained him. My point of that is music was in our home, and David isn't a musician today, but that love of music,
Yeah.
the earlier children can be exposed, the better. So
Absolutely. Very good story. Yeah. So you were with Chicago Symphony for a while.
yeah, 35 years. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And did you work in other areas of arts administration before symphony orchestra, or was that pretty much your career in Chicago?
My career in Chicago was definitely there. I started at Northwestern University for a little while. I went very briefly to the Milwaukee Symphony, which was the first orchestra I ever heard. And I also heard Freischütz. It was the Milwaukee Opera, first opera I ever heard. But then I started shortly after that with Chicago. I started as an intern, and then I came back.
I don't know if you know this. I was a resident artist for 2 seasons with Florentine Opera in Milwaukee.
I think we realized that our paths did not cross, but we know the city.
Yeah, I sang in Eline Hall several times, so I know that city quite well. So there's a quote that you have, and I didn't write it down, but it was an interesting quote in your comments about Rafael, Martha, and about how it was very apparent to you very quickly about the chemistry with Rafael with the musicians. Can you talk just a little bit about that? What made you realize his value?
And what makes me realize his value every day that we work together. Rafael, he will say, I will accuse him of having played a little bit of Hard to Get, but Rafael is in demand around the world, of course, and was music director in Belfast. So his schedule was really quite rooted. I mean, it was planned many years in advance. So it really took several years before Rafael was able to get free to come to San Diego. It was January 2018. And we'd been through a really long conductor search. And I, of course, had great anticipation. But from the first rehearsal, I thought, yeah, that's it. Rafael has, first of all, he's a very kind person. You can blush if you want to. He is a very thoughtful and a deep musician, and he has this incredible combination of making the musicians feel that he's absolutely is in control and has them and is keeping them safe, while at the same time having this incredible energy that is putting them in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So, that energy, but he will not let them down. And they are able to take risks. He's very good psychologist. He's very calm, but understand that under that calm is an engine and a fire and a passion that is just fantastic music making. And from my point of view, and I've worked with a lot of conductors, but his combination of those two is really the strength of his impact as a musician.
It's a wonderful comment, because that idea of holding them in his hands, giving them the place of comfort, but also being demanding. So to push, but if you hold them in a place of comfort, then you can actually push a little harder, right? You can demand more of them. So that's a really wonderful gift, Rafael. And I will attest to his energy. He has boundless energy. So that's a wonderful thing. I think I want to jump in. We have a video, and it's Rafael conducting, not opera. It's smaller. It's long, but I want to listen to it all. So I want to take a little bit of time to hear him conduct. Many of you have heard him conduct, but there's a beautiful recording, and I think it's actually on your website, of the symphony, and it's a recording from Detroit of Mahler 5. And we're going to listen to the Adagietto. So it takes a little bit of time, but I think it's worth listening to all of it. And then we'll come back to some questions and talk a little more about opera and the relationship between the symphony and the opera here in San Diego. So Joseph, if you wouldn't mind queuing that up. Bravo. So beautiful. Bravo, bravo. Rafael, do you remember what year that was? It's Detroit, I think, right?
Yeah, that was I think that was on the spring before my first season here in San Diego.
And you've conducted it here though as well.
Yeah, that was our first concert. Yeah.
And I had the great joy of being able to hear that. And you know, I think it's a really interesting choice, Martha, not knowing that you were going to talk about that holding, but also being demanding, because in that piece, it appears to me, I was just observing that there is, that happens 46, 45 minutes, something into the symphony. And there's been a lot of work happening and a lot of big, and then you have to sort of create this tension of that sustained, beautiful energy at that moment is kind of remarkable, I think, right? So bravo, it's very beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
thought it was worth listening to all of it because A, I love it. And also I just wanted everybody else to have a chance to hear that. Let's talk about some opera. Rafael, when did you begin conducting opera? When was your first experience? How much experience have you had? I know you were associated with Castleton Festival with Mazel. And so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I had done a few of assistants. I was assisting Gustavo doing Carmen in La Scala. Then I met Maestro Barenboim, and he invited me to watch his rehearsals in Sevilla first for a Beethoven cycle, and then he asked me to come to Milan as well when he actually became music director of La Scala, and he did Don Giovanni. I also assisted some Rattle as well, came to Venezuela and did Carmen again, so I was assisting that as well, and Tannhäuser as well, that Gustavo did with an orchestra. Actually, I have to do all the rehearsals because Gustavo was elsewhere, so I rehearsed the orchestra and then in Venezuela, and then they went to Colombia and they actually did the opera in Colombia. So that was that. But then after winning the Malco competition, one of the things was that I was asked to go to Castleton Festival, where Maestro Mazel, the late Maestro Mazel, has this wonderful festival where he actually did opera and some symphonic. So he invited me there. I went there. I remember that was 2012, and it was great. We actually, funny enough, we talked about Mahler 5, and for that first time, because I won in May 2012, he asked me to come in July 2012 to see what was the whole thing. I conduct Leonora 3 overture from the Opera Fidelio.
Mm-hmm.
And then he invited me to come back next year, actually, to do Mahler 5. During that time, he was doing La Fanciulla del West, he was doing Otello, Carmen, and Bohème as well. So it was, he put all of these operas all together and put it in his festival. But of course, I already knew a little bit, but my first experience in opera was because of the Malco competition. They, one of the prizes, it was 22 different institutions that I have to do concerts, and one of them was Royal Swedish Opera. So I went there, and it was one of those things that either you crash and die, or you actually, you just learn how to swim. But they throw me like from the Coronado Bridge, and they put me because my first time on the pit was doing Madame Butterfly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, I remember very clearly, it was 3-hour rehearsal for 2.5 hours of music with 35 minutes of break for lunch.
Yeah.
So it was nothing to do. And it was like, okay, of course, many things happened in that rehearsal. And I just remember everything. I went to talk to the singer, we'll do this. And then it was, I just have to conduct the evening, and everything just clicked. And then, well, people that are here love opera, so you know how opera is. So how could you not love that?
Right.
Oh, yeah, excitement and everything, and then seeing Pinkerton, how he betrays Butterfly. I mean, yeah, I just love it.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the opportunities you had, which I think many young conductors have in opera, which is to conduct the rehearsals because Maestro is doing something else. And so you wind up doing many of the rehearsals, and then it's a very good opportunity for you to understand the stress related with opera without taking the stress of the performance. Do you know what I mean? So a good opportunity for you. I'm going to look and see if there are, I see there's some questions, if there's anything that needs to be answered yet. There's one that I think we will answer later when we get to Bohème. In the conductor's perspective, so from your point of view, are singers another instrument?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a different thing. They have the wonderful ability that their instrument is their body, with the same ability that is their body. You know,
Yeah.
A woodwind instrument or a string instrument, you know exactly what you need to do for it. You just carry with you. But when you have your body, it is great. You don't have to be carrying anything, but your body, you are just human. So you are exposed to so many different things. Yeah. And if you even dust or change of temperature or change of mood, I mean, if you feel blue one day and then you have to do something very cheerful, it gets too thin. But yeah, it's a wonderful instrument and it's completely different, but it's great.
Yeah, I agree. I talk a lot. You may not know this, but the people of the opera do, that I talk a lot about what we try to showcase in all that we do, small, large, everything, is the expressive potency of the voice, because, you know, one person's beautiful is not the same for someone else. You know, you might think one singer is beautiful and not another. And actually, I don't think singing always has to be beautiful. I think Act 4 of Carmen should not be beautiful. But we all understand as human beings, because we all have a voice inside of us, the power of expressiveness that the voice carries. We can be moved by someone speaking that we love, or expressing anger. So that's the wonderful thing about opera, is that the instrument is inside of us. And I think that's why so many people respond to it so powerfully, is because it's the instrument we all carry inside, even if we're not singers. Yeah. Let's talk about the relationship between the symphony and the opera here in San Diego. So I think you all know this, but let's just state the case that we are together, I think, our strongest cultural partners together in San Diego. We have an agreement, luckily, that every time we need to hire musicians, we hire musicians of the San Diego Symphony, which I'm thrilled to say we have. And there was a time when that wasn't the case, when the opera had its own orchestra, but wisely, that decision was made before I came here, and it was something that was very important for me and for Martha to preserve. So I've been talking a little bit about this, and Martha's been talking a little about it lately too, is that, you know, we both really feel that together we enrich the cultural life of San Diego in ways that independently we're not able to. So it's really important that we communicate that and when we think about it. So Martha, why don't you talk about your feelings about that a little bit?
Well, one of the things when I came here, I was thrilled that the orchestra is able to play operatic scores, because I think it is just part of their own musical development. I mean, there's so many rich, wonderful orchestral scores that are opera scores.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the San Diego Opera does those scores, many of them. And I think also the flexibility of that an opera orchestra needs. I should let Rafael speak to the musical part, but the flexibility of playing those scores with singers that do breathe in a different way and that you need to follow, and every night is different. That's really important in the development of an orchestra. So I was delighted that we had this relationship existed, and you know, David is a perfect partner. We really are collaborative by nature and respect each other. We work out our challenges, and of course, in opera and in symphonic music, there are always plenty of those. Mainly just dealing with schedule and how to make it work, and you know, details and so forth, getting it done for the you know, getting the highest quality while at the same time keeping the financial responsibility in mind, and then the schedule. Those are the, you know, the touch points that we work through. But I think it's unique. I was thinking about this. The Seattle Symphony plays for the Seattle Opera, but that's a slightly different relationship. And we are one of the top 20 orchestras by budget size in this country. And I can't think of another. I mean, there's some overlap, but it doesn't have the relationship we do.
It's correct. Yeah. And I know that's from the point of view of talking to other general directors of opera companies. There are ones that, again, as you said, have relationships with the symphony, but not in the same way that we do. So I do think that, the overarching feeling is that it benefits us as institutions in ways beyond financial. But also, I love what you say about the way it benefits, the benefit that it brings to the musicians, that having them be in our pit is helpful to them, not just taking up their time. It's actually makes them stronger musicians. So that's a wonderful occurrence. And of course, for us, the quality of playing has just grown immensely since I've been here. The orchestra is such a fine orchestra now that we're just blessed to be able to have access to the quality of musicians that you've assembled. So,
well, and they are an ensemble that plays together all year long.
Yeah, exactly. Which again, if we were meant to try to form our orchestra, that would never be the case. And it's not the case with other opera companies that have their own orchestras, right?
Right.
So, Rafael, why don't you talk a little bit about your feelings about, this is your first time conducting the symphony with the opera, but you've been around a little time now and you see the relationship between us and the symphony.
It's wonderful. It's a fantastic, as you both has pointed out. I mean, first of all, for me as a conductor, it's so much fun because, I mean, the orchestra already has a relationship with me, so they know where I'm going to do. So then I just need to, sometimes when I go and I do opera in different places, like in Glyndebourne or Royal Opera House or whatever, you have to get the connection with the orchestra, then you do the connection with the singers and you try to match them on together. And here now already, most of that has already been passed because the orchestra, we are one, and then is to have the connection with the singers and try to tell the story all together. And what Martha was saying is absolutely true. I mean, when you have an orchestra that plays opera, it's the versatility and the flexibility that they give you. It translates to any symphonic concert that they will go. And at the same time, it will translate to any opera score that you need, because you just make an analogy and then you put a different color to try to make the voice shine in a different way, just by doing different things that we have been exploring all the time, all day long. So yeah, for me, it's great. It's fantastic.
I think also I had the experience, you talked about Daniel Barenboim, and as you know, Rafael, I worked with him many, many years. And we did the 3 Da Ponte operas in a stage created on the orchestra stage. So it was a staged opera, the Alden brothers directed it. And then between it, Barenboim played piano concertos on the nights where the singers were resting. And he could see in the eyes of the players that in the concerto, there would be a passage and they would say, Don Giovanni or Figaro. And they also heard, you speaking of the question of the instruments, they heard how the singer phrased it and had to take a breath and with the language and the words, and it influenced how they then interpreted that. And I think that the more we can do eventually, where if you're doing Don Giovanni and we're doing, Mozart symphonic works, the more we can kind of show those, Fidelio is an opera I would love to hear.
Me too.
The more we can do that, the more it fleshes out for the players the complete output of a composer, and in particular, this addition of language, of inflection, and so forth comes through.
You mentioned Fidelio. It's something that you and I have had a conversation about. It's one of the things that we're looking at is, in addition to having Rafael conduct for us more in our stage productions, finding opportunities where we can partner with some staging on the stage with the orchestra for something that would be over and above our regular series, probably over and above your regular series, something that we really come together as institutional partners in works that we would love to do, but would probably have a hard time getting a big audience for on our own, but coming together. And I think Fidelio is the perfect opera for us to approach that. And I know, Rafael, I've heard Martha say that you feel very excited about the future of your ensemble, of the musicians playing German rep. So yeah, so that would be a really wonderful thing. If you would love to hear Fidelio, raise your hand. Good. All right, it's one of my favorites. So, all right, let's talk. We don't have a ton more time, so let's talk about La Boheme. So, you know, we are about to open. We open in 2 days. Tonight is our final dress rehearsal. For those of you that don't know the opera rehearsal process, this was fairly condensed. It's a shortened opera. It's, you know, usually 2 hours of music. We've cut it down less than 90 minutes. And that meant that we also had a shortened rehearsal period. We just had a week in the studio, which was outdoors. We rented the space outdoors and put up a tent, and that was our studio because of health considerations. And we did all that in a week. And then this week is our technical week. And if you don't know the process, Rafael, as the conductor, is there during all of the day rehearsals, conducting the staging rehearsals, as well as working with the orchestra. So it's a shortened performance. What are your feelings about that as a conductor, Rafael? How are you feeling about it musically, the challenges that poses, and also dramatically how it's working?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of challenges. One of them being that our studio that was outdoors, it was in the middle of the heat wave, and the studio was at La Mesa. So we were doing rehearsal at 105 degrees. But that, you know, that's one of the things that the nature goes with us. But we're, you know, resilient with that. But the storytelling, I think Bruce, the way that he did the cuts is very wonderful. It's not only for the practical part that we have to make the music itself to be under 90 minutes, but it doesn't break the storytelling.
Yes.
It actually gets everything. The line is still there. Everything is, I mean, it's Puccini. Come on. Those amazing lines that everybody hums and, you know, sings in the shower and everything. Everything is there. One of the good things is that one of the most challenging or the most problematic part of Bohème is the second act with the chorus at the Quartier Latin. When you have that, I mean, it's always wonderful to see, but to put together, my God, it's always one of the things that will make your hair go very, very gray. If you don't lose it, you know, because there are so many things that it could just go wrong, and sometimes they're doing the spinning in here. I mean, one thing, but that is not. And being a memoir, you still feel that, and the music. I mean, the music is great, so you will not see all the amount of people on the stage, but you could still hear them, and you will have that kind of thing, and it will play in your memory, in your own mind. And we know that sometimes things that you cannot see are more powerful in your mind. So that's wonderful for the dramatic part. So it will give you to your mind to actually maybe imagine your best production you have seen, or something very strange that you have common in your own mind. And this is great. And music itself is great. For the memory, for the singers, and for myself that I have done the opera before, it plays a trick because, of course, you have this in here and you have to cut it. So it's a different mindset, but it's okay. We just do it. Yeah.
We're there now. I mean, I would say the first few days, you know, I imagine everyone in this production, I think, has sung the role before several times for some of them. And in Act 2 in particular, the singers get their cues from many places. And oftentimes you get a cue from the chorus, so you remember singing Parpignol is coming to you and singing this. All of that's gone. So, but we still have some of the musical information, which I like. Like there's the cue for Parpignol that you hear, even though he's no longer a character. And again, I think that works because it could be a memory of Rodolfo in that moment, right? For our audience, I think it's worth explaining the way that we are dealing with. We have space limitations, right? The singers have to be 120 square feet away from each other at all times. So that's a challenge. And how do you tell a story about budding lovers in that kind of physical distancing? So the stage director has taken the position that it is in Rodolfo's present time. He's telling it as a writer, probably 10 years in the future, reflecting back on his interactions with everyone. So everyone is a memory to Rodolfo. And spoiler alert, I know you know the opera, so it's not going to be a surprise. Mimi dies at the end. So Mimi is a spirit. And so she sort of, she sort of surrounds him as this presence, but he's reflecting backwards. And so if you know Act 1, you have beautiful aria followed by beautiful aria followed by love duet as they go off in their budding romance to Kaipamumus. Well, she's dead and he's remembering it. So that gorgeous love duet, he's singing out to the audience and she's behind him quite a distance away. So you see that he's reflecting on this moment with tenderness, but he also is aware that she's dead. It's very beautiful. I think that idea has made it more poignant in ways than actually I've ever seen before. So the idea of musical memory is also a good thing, hinting to some of the stuff that like maybe he remembers the character of Parpignol in the chorus, but they're gone. They're just gone from his memory now. So I'm so excited. We only have a little bit of time left. We're gonna have some questions, but I wanted to show some photographs. We don't have any recordings of our production, which means that you have to buy a ticket if you haven't bought one to actually hear it. Before we do that though, let's just talk about the cast because it's a phenomenal cast, right? Martha was saying that at the beginning, for those of you that joined late, she came last night. It's one of the reasons why I was adamant about finding a way to actually produce this in this time, because we had contracted a cast that was just really, really wonderful and something to be proud of. So I hope you agree, Rafael.
Totally, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. Really fine singers. And so please, if you don't have a ticket is a car in this production, meaning that if you have a 4-seater, you get a ticket, you bring 3 friends. If you have a 6-seater, you bring 5 friends. So, it's the price of the ticket is the price of your car. Let's look at some of the photographs. This is from last night, our dress rehearsal. This is Josh Guerrero and Ana Maria Martinez, who is, of course, our Rodolfo and Mimi. And you see she's sort of looking at him from a little afar. She's the memory that he has. This is Andrea Carroll, who's a phenomenal young singer living in Vienna now. She's an American singer. I actually worked with her in New York when she was just finishing as an undergrad. And she was already a phenomenal artist. And I think she's under a Fest contract, meaning that she's in a sort of a year-long relationship with the Opera House in Vienna now. And she's our Musetta. She's very beautiful, very physical actor, a phenomenal singer. This is Bobby Mellon, who's our Chonard. And if you know the opera, there's the guys that all live together. Some of the characters are more fleshed out than others. Chonard is sort of the less fleshed out of them, but he can be the funny character, and he's quite funny. He's a physical, funny character. Ana Maria Martinez, who I think maybe many of you know, we had to replace our Mimi. We had Angel Blue, and she just had a personal situation that she had to take care of immediately and really regretted not being able to come here. And that's a role that she sings very beautifully. But we were so lucky to get Ana Maria Martinez, who has a huge international career and was available and was game and was really interested to try to take this on. And so she stepped in and is doing a beautiful job. Again, Ana Maria. This is Alexander Birch Elliott, who's another young singer. He's our Marcello. He was covering, he kind of made a big splash a year ago, was covering Marius Gvichin at the Met in Pearl Fishers and also Houston. And he wound up taking over opening night and then took the whole run at the Met and then also took the whole run in Houston and kind of made a big, big splash. He's young, he's quite good. Very virile baritone, really great on stage as well. And of course, them together. And Andrea, because she looks great on camera, we get a lot of her. And Josh, and again, you see the picture here, right? So Josh is in present time as our Rodolfo, and he sort of looks active. And we have Mimi as this spirit and memory behind him. What you see behind you, I don't think we got any good shots of it, but we've had to construct a rather large stage for the singers. And if you can remember what we said, 120 square feet, which the way that's calculated is 15 feet in front of the singer, 4 feet on either side. So we always have to have 15 feet in front of the singer before another artist can be there. And that was determined by the union that represents the singers. So we had to start off with a very big space. We have a separate stage, which is if you're facing the stage, is to the right for the orchestra. And again, that's to guarantee everyone's safety. You know, as you can imagine, aspirates, things coming from your mouth, liquid spraying from the mouth can be a danger for COVID. So we want to make very sure that we were ensuring everyone's safety. So the musicians are quite far away. You'll also see when you're there that the musicians are separated. The string players are 6 feet apart and the brass and woodwinds are 12 feet apart with a plexiglass shield around them, all guaranteeing safety, right? And we also everyone's tested. We started with the baseline of making sure that everyone had a negative test. So we were all, being very safe. We've done a lot of work, Martha knows this, on really establishing very strict safety protocols for the audience, but also for everyone that's employed in this production. And we did have to communicate and have approved by the county this plan. And it was quite detailed, and we wound up hiring a safety coordinator to oversee all the safety aspects of this. This is Josh and Bobby, and also Colin Ramsey, who is our Colline, who's the fourth of the Bohemians. Again, you can see, can you just see, you can imagine behind you've got Mimi in sort of a spirit world as Josh is thinking and being more active, Rodolfo. So that's what it looks like. It's a staged opera. It's on a big stage. It's fully costumed, wigs and makeup, in the period that you would imagine La Boheme physically. Again, if you just remember the way we're staging this, it's jumps ahead in Rodolfo's mind by about 10 years. I think we have enough time for a couple of questions. Let's see if we have any that were not answered. Oh, got a great comment from Evelyn. Thank you. Also got a yes to Fidelio. Excellent. Earlier from Janet White. Oh, I think we got that. That's good. Okay, any other questions? If anyone has a question that they would like to ask in the last moments we're together, wave or type or anything. If you don't have a ticket to this La Boheme, you must come. You must come. We are, if you care about the opera and you support the opera, you really need to come to support the opera, of course. You also need to come because you're going to be seeing live music again for the first time in a very long time, which is something we all love. But you're also going to be sharing a communal experience, right? And we're doing a lot of work together via Zoom, and it's great. But you all actually be in a space with other people that love opera, sharing that experience, and we all really need that right now. So if you don't have a ticket, I'm going to encourage you to. 4 performances this Saturday, following Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, Friday, and then this Sunday. So 4 performances. These are all evening performances at 7:30, and it's at the Pachanga Sports Arena, formerly known just as the Sports Arena, which is on Sports Arena Boulevard. Thank you all very much for joining us. Martha and Rafael.
And I have one commercial announcement for those Fidelio lovers.
Yes.
Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on our YouTube channel and on Facebook and on Symphony Stream, Rafael's conducting 3 string pieces and Beethoven's Triple Concerto, which were recorded live at the Conrad last week. So those of you who love Fidelio, tune in.
And that's tomorrow night, right?
Tomorrow at 7, and then it'll be available on Symphony Stream.
So that's great. So, on your before opera night, you should get a little Beethoven in. That's a very good plug. So awesome. Rafael's been a little busy.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you all very much. Martha and Rafael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.